Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Context is King. I'm Rebecca Brayton, and with me as always is WatchMojo founder and CEO Ashkan Karbasfrooshan to discuss peak depression age, which is 47.2 years for men specifically, I think. But anyway, so that's fun. Let's talk about that.
For the record, I'm nowhere near 47, and you are at least 30 years away from that.
Far away from it.
Far away from that.
30
Yes, we have underage employees here.
Oh boy. So a new study by David Blanchflower collecting data about well-being and age from 132 countries suggests that for people in developed nations, the happiness curve reaches its perigee at precisely 47.2 years.
Wow.
Okay,
I'm guessing
what does that mean for you?
I mean, I'm nowhere near that age, but I think it might be because you are getting close to 50. And 50, we're big on symbols. Like, I'm 41. When I turned 40, I was like, ooh, it was a big difference. I also think the reason for that is it might be a confluence, I guess, nowadays of where your kids are. Maybe they're in like university, they're leaving. All of a sudden, your house may be empty. You have this mortgage on your house.
I don't know about 50 anymore.
Yeah, that's why I tried to do the math. I mean, whatever the age is, I think it's a time when you kind of look and you assess. And I think we live in this. Now, it's interesting. It's a he.
David, yeah. Study it.
So I think he probably did this research, and 132 countries means it's Western, many different. But we are very materialistic, right? So I think it's exacerbated by the fact that maybe you look around and you're like, I'm not as rich as I was. I'm not as successful as I was. And you also realize that Well,
millennials less so.
Millennials in what?
But they're not materialistic.
No, but the 47-year-old is not a millennial, right?
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Maybe this data will change.
But the flip side to that is, racism is a thing, sexism, ageism is a thing. So if you're 47, you may find yourself out of the loop. You don't get, it's really hard. If you're unemployed at 45, it's probably hard to get a job nowadays because, there's this trend towards...
45 is not old.
I hope it's not because I'm near that age. I'm saying when you go into a job...
I would have said more like 55.
In the context of ageism matters to discriminate in job interviews. Like in technology, they're like, you got to be young to get tech and all that. It's been proven that experience makes you a lot better. I'm a far better entrepreneur now than I was 20 years ago. That's not even comparable. But if you're trying to raise funding, if you're 21, a whiz kid, or even 16, a dropout, you might get a bit more attention than if you're a 45-year-old, even if you've had success, right? So I think it's the combo of, we talk about work, life, and play. So I think with work, you could argue that hey, are my golden years of earning power behind me or ahead of me? They should be ahead of you, but 2, socially, whatever's going on with your spouse, your kids, you take stock. And then 47, I guess you're close to 50, and symbolically, that's a big number, right?
What's the point of this episode? Are you trying to depress us all? Or
yeah, I think
you're doing a good job.
Well, you're not even 30 yet, so what do you worry about? Here's the point of this episode. I think we talked about it on the expectations versus gratitude. I think a lot of that is, first of all, I don't want to say that mental health and depression and things like that are only a state of mind. There's a lot more that goes on there. But I think that some of the things that lead to feeling down and depressed are self-imposed because of expectations that we have and just because how we communicate or we don't communicate. One of the big things that I've started to spend more and more time with our fellow colleagues is sitting down with them and just talking to them. I feel like there's always, and that's just everybody, not just at this company. I think we put a lot of self-imposed stress and anxiety. And frankly, the point of it was, so I'm 42, I got an 11 and 9-year-old. And to them, I'll never forget, so we mentioned that I'm a wannabe amateur soccer player. So like in a given league, our team wins and dominates, and then that same team goes and plays against 20-year-olds, so it's a bit tougher. And I remember in that league, we got eliminated, and when I came home, my daughters had created this Dad, you're the greatest, we love you, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so I was realizing that the people you love, the paradox is the people you kill yourself to provide for and give a good life, they don't actually care about your job, your title. They just want you around and happy and all that. So I think that not necessarily that everything is in your mind, but a lot of this is self-imposed. I last year came to a point where I ended up in the hospital. I had chest pains. There was a lot of travel, red eyes, partying a bit too much, eating too many steaks maybe. But when I came back, it took me months to, I wrote a nice little article saying I'm going to change. I didn't really change. It took the end of the year and the end of the decade and the end of a few things for me to go like, hey, by any metric, if I look back, I'm really grateful and happy with where my career has gone. But why is it that I'm always frustrated and disappointed with where I may be or the company is? And I'm like, one of my informal advisors was like, you and your team have built one of the most successful YouTube digital media brands. Isn't that even more than what you set out to do? He's like, do you feel you need to be number one or you are a failure? And it was true. I was like, yeah, it's like, so I do think a lot of it is self-imposed. Are you not, are you?
No, I was just thinking of the silver medalists that cry.
Yeah, are they crying because they're happy or because they were in gold medal? I think that's why the bronze medalist is usually happier than the silver medalist.
No, I know.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that, like, I really think if you're 47, your spouse, your kids, I really think you should turn to them and realize what mattered to you to kill yourself to succeed, which was really to provide for them. Those people really don't care about the car you drive and what your title is. And one thing you mentioned, millennials, that I really like about millennials is millennials and Gen Z, they don't necessarily attribute their self-worth and value to their title. I really like that. Like, millennials get a bad rep. I like the fact that they detach themselves. And maybe all generations were like that, but I don't think they were like that. I think previous generations were a lot more like, what's my title, what car do I drive, and keeping up with the Joneses. So that's really the point of it. It's more to be like, it's a state of mind, block that, the people that matter don't care. And frankly, 70% of people who took their lives in 2017 were men.
So, yeah.
Because I think there's
in 2017, men died by suicide 3.54 times more often than women. Middle-aged white men in particular are susceptible. White males accounted for nearly 70% of suicide deaths in 2017.
So when we did the rewind video, when I did the episode 2 of the FU show, and I've definitely discussed it on depression and entrepreneurship and all that, one of the big causes that I want to get involved in is helping entrepreneurs break that kind of, got to be crushing it, and basically depression, and ultimately those who don't see a way out and think the only option is to take their lives. That's crazy, right? So I think that there's this pressure of being the provider. I also think this kind of like stigma of talking about things, crying, talking about your feelings. Like, again, once a day I'm talking to a colleague and they're just opening up about their feelings. They're just basically talking about something that they almost feel bad about feeling. And I'm like, you don't control your feelings. I'm like, it's fine that you feel that way. And I'm like, it's okay to be upset, and even not to the extreme of like Shakespearean levels, but I'm like, it's okay to feel a bit of jealousy or resentment or anxiety or pride and ambition, so I think that's what you have to kind of break down, that it's okay to talk. We talk so much about gender roles. I think the main one is not like, you want to wear makeup, who gives a F? I think the bigger thing is, you want to cry. If you want to, open up about your feelings. I think those are
I don't think that's gendered.
You think, what does that mean? Like,
I don't
think, statement you're making?
Okay, what I am saying is, I don't think it is exclusive to men that they don't want to cry.
I agree. But I think if a woman you don't know what I was going to say.
Yeah, I know.
At the SALT conference, the Mooch, Anthony Scaramucci, was having kind of like something like this. People were around. And he goes, I'll never forget once I told this guy, go to the bathroom. No, I told this woman colleague, like I had a chat with a male and a female, and then at the end I told the girl, I'm like, look, I know it's tough to hear, go do your crying, because the guy that walked out of here, he's already crying in his bathroom. It's totally normal. You know what I mean? But there is this stereotype that like, oh, women always cry, women are emotional. Men are far more emotional. The problem with men is they're also a bit more volatile. So the emotional reaction of men is compounded by a bigger volatility, and then add substances and this pressure.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I'm pretty volatile.
I think you're volatile, but I'm not saying I am, but I think men, especially when there's substance abuse that then amplifies depression, there's also violent behavior that sometimes comes into it.
That is different. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. So I think the point of all this is, a lot of it is self-imposed. Like men who sometimes are like thinking they're a hero, who end up tragically taking the lives of others and then killing themselves, thinking that's a solution. There is this lineage that goes back to addiction, depression, expectations.
I don't know. All right.
This is meant to be uplifting, but
It
it's not.
is?
It's the path forward is it starts with you. It does start with you, and you have to
It's a lot of pressure to put on people, though.
It is, but
I think
pressure is good.
the way forward is just to talk about it.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't know. I'm sorry. Anyway, it's difficult. It's hard. And
well, you know what? I'll say one thing that a former colleague said, and this is my last point on this. Our former colleague was like, sometimes we talk about topics. She's like, but you're not like you don't have like necessarily all the research under your belt to do it. And I was like, but this is a show for your average person that may not be 20 years of psychology, 30 years of clinical studies and all that. And you're right. I think the key is to open up. And that goes with like what I've spent most of the last year doing, and something I criticize my fellow entrepreneurs. Sometimes my fellow entrepreneurs are on the conference circuit. They're at one conference after another. Like I'll do 2 or 3 and I see them at all, but I know just from their LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and everything that they're at all of these. And I'm like, this guy or girl should take half of the time that he or she is at this conference panel and spend more time with their employees, internal, just to talk to them.
All right. Well, if the internet has taught us anything, it's that you don't need education to have an opinion on something. So anyway, ironic segue. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you next time.